Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 913, 913, Monday, September 30th, 2019. Very busy Monday today, a lot of news to cover from over the weekend, as well as getting to the winner of the Dumbass of the Week. So we have no time to spare, so let's go ahead and get right to it. Okay, it looks like the pencil neck geek, the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff for brains, may have some problems. Well, of course we know he's got a lot of problems, but he may have some other types of problems. So let's go ahead and, you're aware of some of the other things, obviously, that there's people calling for him to step down or to be censored or what have you. But this is something a little different. It's being reported yesterday in the Gateway Pundit. It appears that the bug-eyed fool appeared at some sort of a function in Ukraine back at the end of August, this past August, just a couple of weeks ago. He was there to appear and speak at a function hosted by the Soros-backed Atlantic Council, who we just talked about extensively yesterday. The Atlantic Council, who's connected very closely to both CrowdStrike and Confusion GPS. So here's Adam Schiff less than a month ago over in Ukraine at this function hosted by not just the Atlantic Council, but also a Ukrainian arms dealer from California. His name is Igor Pasternak. He was also one of the people who were involved in the Soros-backed coup in Ukraine back when they pushed out Yanukovych to get in Poroshenko, along with the help of Victoria F. the EU Nuland. Now, one of the things that they're doing in this that they did in this particular function was it served several different purposes. One of them was to raise money for Adam Schiff, the pencil neck geek. He's at a fundraiser in Ukraine with the Atlantic Council, which is closely associated with Fusion GPS and CrowdStrike, and it's being hosted by this Atlantic Council and a Ukrainian arms dealer who lives in California, who raises money for the pencil neck geek, Adam Schiff. So now we have Trump tweeting out that he wants Schiff investigated for fraud and treason. How about that? You like that? Good. There's more to come. Now this next thing I'm going to spend about 15 or 20 minutes on. And this is an article that was written by Laura Loomer about 3 days ago. I like Laura Loomer. I think she's a pretty good reporter. But it's been my experience with Laura Loomer, even though she is a legit journalist. She does FOIA requests like a lot of journalists, and she looks at the documents. She looks at other documents other people have gotten their hands on. She's very good at searching the federal records databases and things like that. She's solid. But Laura Loomer likes to take facts that she has, and then she likes to make, connect the dots sort of things, which is what we all do. But I will have to say that on occasion, she will make some fairly large leaps in logic to get to some final point she's making. She still does a good job of bringing out facts, and she does make a lot of good analysis. But sometimes it's a little bit embellished, you might say. So with that in mind, that this is Laura Loomer, I still think that there's enough information in this story that it's worth talking about, even though, again, some of this may be embellished. It may not be 100% fact-checked, but it's a good article. It sums up a lot of things about Ukraine and things related to the Spygate fiasco. And while there is some evidence behind her allegations, I think her leaps in logic are pretty large in some cases. But again, there's enough stuff here, and the gist of what she's saying is worth, I think, talking about it. But just keep in mind, I'm kind of giving you a disclaimer here that this is not necessarily 100% fact, because I typically try to work off of as much as possible things that have been checked and verified and are facts. This is going a little bit beyond where I normally go, but I just found her overall take on this stuff and some of the new information that she's got is worth talking about with all of you guys. So let's go ahead and go through some of these points that she makes in this story, which are pretty incredible. If even half of what she's claiming in this story is true, it's pretty damning, and it's a lot of new information we didn't have. So, she starts out by talking about this ambassador to the United Kingdom who Trump fired back in May of this past year. Of course, we're talking about Marie Yovanovitch. So Obama appointed Marie Yovanovitch as the ambassador to the Ukraine back in August of 2016. August of 2016. Very important date. This was just days after a cybersecurity senior official stated that the operation was being bottlenecked by Peter's been stroking us. And she's describing this senior cybersecurity senior official, and he was in fact looking at the Clinton or the DNC email server, not the Clinton private email server, the DNC server that was alleged to have been hacked. And what he's looking at is a mirrored copy. We'll get into that in a little while. So this is something I didn't know. I mean, we knew that we'd heard that Peter's been stroking us had gotten information, but we didn't know that he'd gotten a mirrored copy of the server. But if you believe what she's saying in this story, because she goes back to this a couple different times, the FBI did acquire a mirrored copy of the DNC server, and they had a mirrored copy of that. Peter's been stroking us bottlenecked it and kept this cyber senior official who was analyzing it from getting his work done. Yovanovitch, in addition, in the same part of the story, we learned that Yovanovitch was also Nellie Ohr's mentor. Yovanovitch was Nellie Ohr's mentor. Yovanovitch also worked the Russia desk in the State Department under President Bill Clinton. So in other words, Yovanovitch goes way back with the Clintons. Yovanovitch, essentially, what she did in 2016, she served as the dossier Ukrainian coordinator, posing as an ambassador. She was coordinating the flow and the movement of dirt going in both directions from Ukraine to the Democratic National Committee, Michael Isikoff, Confusion GPS, and the FBI. She was the turnstile, the coordinator, moving the information back and forth, sort of like an expediter, getting that information through probably Chalupa and other Ukrainian officials, corrupt ones. She was dispersing that information out to Chalupa, who would then go to the DNC, who would go to Confusion GPS, who would go to Isikoff, would go to various people, and apparently Yovanovitch was moving this information through the into the FBI because they had literally set up a little mini FBI branch at the embassy, and she was working as kind of the point person to move this information and direct it to the right, send it in the right directions. She was fired shortly after John Durham showed up on the scene. He had just visited Ukraine. So you have to ask yourself, does John Durham and now William Barr, do they now have a mirrored copy of the DNC server? And that would include, by the way, Hillary's emails. They might have a copy of that too. The Atlantic Council, CrowdStrike, Confusion GPS are all connected, as I mentioned before, and the Atlantic Council is based in Ukraine. Nellie Ohr was in Ukraine, working under Yovanovitch and for Confusion GPS in 2016. Nellie Ohr was in Ukraine in 2016, working under Yovanovitch and for Confusion GPS. during 2016. The CEO of CrowdStrike is on the board of the Atlantic Council. So is James Clapper, and John Brennan had recently been on the board of the Atlantic Council. They're at the heart of the Ukrainian scandal, all connected to Confusion GPS and CrowdStrike. Nellie Orr put her research on 2 thumb drives. On one thumb drive, she had all the Trump-Russia information, and on the other, she had the Manafort dirt. This information she got came from Ukraine. That is why John Durham has spent so much time over there during the summer. CrowdStrike likely mirrored the DNC server, meaning they have it. And now Durham likely has it, meaning Barr and Durham likely have read the Rotten Reverend Clinton's emails. If the DNC server was mirrored, and we know that most networks, when they use these backup systems that run these backups, essentially what they do in backing up the information, they essentially get a mirrored copy, almost like taking a photograph or a photocopy of what's on that drive. And it may be the C drive, the D drive, the E drive, the F drive. Where I work, we have backup servers that copy all the information on the 3 or 4 different drives that we use on our system. And this is likely what was happening. And it's very, very likely, if not almost for sure, that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, as well as the companies that Clinton outsourced for her private email server, also had these types of systems that do these backups. And essentially what they do is they make what's called mirrored copies. Every 4, 8, 12, 16, or 24, whatever hours, they run these backups. And essentially a backup means collecting all the information that's there up to date at the time of the backup, and it essentially mirrors what's on the drive. It's like looking at your computer. You click on My Computer, you see C drive. You may have a D drive, an E drive, an F drive. You can, partition your disk into multiple drives. And so these backup servers essentially take a photograph of everything that's on that drive. And so we know for a fact, that, and this is why Trump was asking about the servers in Ukraine and saying that the information is in Ukraine, because they have a mirrored copy of that. And that means they also likely, Durham and what's his name out there in Arkansas, probably have been to one of these backup companies that the Rotten Reverend Clinton outsourced to get their mirrored copies of Clinton's private email server, which means they probably have the DNC server to find out who really hacked it or didn't hack it, and they also now probably have all of the Rotten Reverend Clinton's emails. It's very likely. In addition, from getting this information from these mirrored servers, Barr and Durham may also have likely determined how payments were laundered between the DNC, Perkins Coie, and the Hillary for America campaign. They probably also have read Nellie Orr's work product, which would also have been on those mirrored servers. And this: Christopher Steele made several visits to the Ukraine embassy in 2016. The actual technician that examined the DNC server that was in possession of Peter's been stroking us has a mirrored copy. That's what he was working on, the mirrored copy, and that's why Barr and Durham probably have it. They probably have multiple copies, depending on what backup dates you're talking about. And the technician that was examining the server says that the origin of the code was Chinese, and it was derived from Ukraine. The technician was never able to complete his examination on the server because Peter's been stroking us bottled it up. And then Yovanovitch was put in, and that slammed the door on all his work. Yovanovitch also told Ukrainian officials not to listen to or worry about Trump policy because he was going to be impeached. And we learned that from a transcript. So it looks like, and now we can understand why there is so much heat coming so hard and so fast, it looks like Trump, Barr, and Durham have found the bullseye on the target. And that would be Ukraine, where the mirrored copies of these servers exist and are likely now in the possession of Barr and Durham. And Trump probably knows it. Oh my my. We also learned over this weekend that the State Department has ramped up their investigation into the Right Reverend Clinton's use of her private email server. There have been 130 aides, people at the State Department, who have been interviewed. Most have been granted immunity. 130 State Department employees interviewed and granted immunity. They can tell what they know without incriminating themselves. And I assure you they're probably singing like a bird. Many of the old emails have been deemed classified. Emails that were previously not classified or given some classification now have been assigned a classification or officially classified. Many of these were on the Right Reverend Clinton's unsecured server. So, there you go. New details from Laura Loomer. Some of this is backed up by recent documents she's received, some from other FOIA requests that she's looked at. Some of this is connecting dots. Some of it may be a little bit of a stretch. But if even half of what I just told you is true, it's a big problem. Now, I'm not a computer genius, but I did have 2 quarters in school in networking, computer networking, and we actually did play around with these backup systems. The one we played around with was called RAID, a random independent array of disks. And essentially these things look like your basic computer console, CPU or whatever, and they have like multiple slots. The ones that we used to practice on in school, the one we had a bunch of them, and I think they held 6 disks each. And so what we would do is we go into the server admin function, and we would set in there and program in there when our system would do a backup. And this is how it would work. Whenever the system was scheduled to do a backup, it simply would go to whichever drive on the hard drive, drive C, drive D, drive E, drive F, whatever, and it would literally make a mirrored copy, and then it would be saved and stored on that disk. So these servers that the DNC had, there's multiple, probably many, every time they did a backup, there are probably many mirrored copies of the DNC server, and they're right there in Ukraine. They probably, even if they can find the one that Peter's been stroking us was working with, or this analyst was working with, they can get it right there at the FBI. And the 2 or 3 companies that the Right Reverend Clinton was outsourcing for her private email server almost certainly had backup systems themselves, which would have mirrored everything on her server. So they probably do have everything. Durham and Barr probably have everything. So with that in mind, let's move on to some other news here real quickly, and then we'll get to the dumbass of the week. Pelosi says that losing the House, and she's given a speech, and not really a speech, but she's doing a Q&A. She's sit down somewhere, I'm not sure where it was. There was a short video clip I watched, but she was asked about the risk of possibly losing the House going for impeachment, and she literally said that it is worth it. It is worth it to impeach Trump. Now, in a lot of ways, she's right. She's not telling 100% truth. She's only telling 50% of the truth. As I said, I think in yesterday's video or the day before, what have they got to lose? I mean, they know that they're not going to beat Trump at the ballot box. They're not going to beat him with the Right Reverend. They're not going to beat him with Biden. They're not going to beat him with Warren. They're not going to beat him with Sanders. I can't think of anyone else who could throw their hat in the ring other than some billionaire or something, like a Bloomberg or someone like that. So really, when you think about it, and of course in 2020 Trump will be on the ballot, so you can assume that there'll be a lot more voter turnout of Trump people voting, which means a lot of those seats that the Democrats won back in 2018, they're probably going to turn back to where they were, to Republican seats. Remember, the Republicans really only need to pick up 29 seats to win back a majority of the House, or at least ways I'd give them 50-50, and of course they still have to replace Justin Amash. So 29 Democrat seats and Justin Amash is what they need to win back. I think that's very attainable. I think Pelosi knows that that's probably almost certainly that Trump's going to be reelected, and probably 100% on that, and about maybe 60-40 that Republicans will take back the House as well, and at least hold on to their majority in the Senate. So if you look at it from Pelosi's point of view, they're going to lose anyway. They have nothing to lose, really. And I think that that's really the point she's trying to make. They have nothing to lose. She's not going to say that, obviously, but that's the bottom line. She really has nothing to lose. The Democrats are going to lose anyway. Might as well go for all the marbles, eh? But the downside to that is that if they just lost a normal election and didn't go off onto this tangent, they could still, after the election, say, okay, well, we got our ass kicked again. We clearly moved too far to the left. Trump won in a huge victory. We need to rework our party, kick the communists out, and we need to go back to more of a center, slightly center left party and try to remake ourselves. And it'd probably take them a couple of election rounds, maybe 2 to 4 years to kind of get themselves back on track, but they could recover from it. If they go full commie, on top of that, they tried to push impeachment this whole time. They're absolutely going to get their ass kicked, and they could be in the wilderness for the next 10 years. And keep in mind, in the next 2 to 3 weeks or so, we're going to get the report from Horowitz, which is going to show the 4 FISA warrants were obtained fraudulently. We're also going to be getting Barr and Durham's investigation report at some point prior, I would assume, prior to the general election kickoff in the spring of 2020. And that's likely going to be devastating from what we're hearing. So all those things combined, I think that Nancy Pelosi knows all this is coming down the pike. She knows the FISA report's coming out, and she knows it's not good. She knows Barr and Durham are balls deep in Ukraine, getting to the root of the problem, and she knows exactly what they're going to find. So I guess the way Pelosi looks at it, this is do or die. It's all or nothing. And they have to be able to take out Trump, and they have to be able to smear Barr, and to the point where he have to recuse himself, which he's not going to do. Even if he did, it would fall to his deputy, Rosen, and of course he was a hand pick by Barr. And Rosen seems to be pretty solid. So I see no way out for the Democrats. I think they're screwed. That's what it looks like to me. Then we have the Biden campaign. You know, Rudy Giuliani was out on Sunday morning. I think he hit every damn... I saw him on 4 different shows. I guess they're all in New York. He just goes from one to the next. But he was on fire Sunday morning. And it was so bad for Joe Biden as a result of Giuliani producing the evidence right on live TV that the Biden campaign immediately sent out a letter to all media outlets telling them to no longer book Giuliani. Let's see how that works out. Giuliani's got the goods on Joe Biden. And it's just a matter of time before I understand that one of the Senate committees is finally going to get off their ass and hold some hearings. The FBI refuses to investigate it, but I wouldn't be so surprised at some point that Barr will have no choice but to get the DOJ involved to investigate this, if it's not being done already. Now, let's go through to the dumbass of the week. And really this week, I think we all know this is going to come down to either down to 2 people, either Madam Botox or the bug-eyed fool, Adam Shit for brains. That's really who this week was going to come down to. I knew it yesterday before we even started voting. And, of course, the votes today spelled that out. If you look at the voting tally, Pelosi and Schiff just dominated. So we'll go through this, and we'll see which one of those 2 won and who managed to come in a distant 3rd place. Lori Holt, she went with the bug-eyed fool, Pelosi, and the rotten reverend. Rose went with the bug-eyed fool, the pencil neck geek Schiff, along with Pelosi. Kimberly Smith, she went with Greta. You know, I have never talked about Greta. I haven't had time. And Greta's annoying as hell to me, and she's nuts, but she's a child. And I think I feel sorry for her more than anything else. And the people who I point the finger at, who I really blame, are her parents. How despicable are these people to allow their child to be used in this way? Absolutely disturbing. Sue Sung, he's going to go with the pencil neck geek, Adam Schiff. Sane environmentalist, he's going to go with the pencil neck geek along with Madame Botox and the parents of Greta. Very well done, sane environmentalist. You nailed it. The parents of Greta. Susan's going to go with Madame Botox. Internet privacy advocate, he's going to go with Tulsi. Yes, Tulsi Gabbard. She flipped. The pressure was on, and she flipped. A lot of people in my comment section really like Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, I think she's a nice person. I basically like her demeanor and stuff. I think she's somewhat reasonable, but I could never vote for her. But, you know, I'm not a big Tulsi fan, but I don't hate Tulsi or anything, but I'm not a big Tulsi fan. So it didn't surprise me to see that. Microdynamic, he's going to go with the Rotten Reverend Clinton and all of the New World Order morons who showed up for Greta. And I think that was, what, in Canada? That was sickening. Freddie, or is it Freedy? I don't know. I don't know if it's Freddie or Freedy. I just know that it's a she. She is going to go with the Bug-Eyed Fool, the demo commie candidates, every damn one of them. And I think she's relating to the same thing, the Greta story. And also, Nadler, let's not forget the Penguin. Let's not forget the Penguin. Although I think Schiff for Brains edged him out this week for camera time. I think what actually happened is that Nadler, the Penguin, dropped the ball so bad that Pelosi took it away from him and gave it to the pencil neck geek. Gordon's going to go with the Republicans who allowed Schiff to read the fake letter. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, Gordon, watching the various clips I've seen, it looked like to me, because you could see Nunes and you could see Ratcliffe, and when Schiff first started reading that, at first they seemed like they didn't know what he was talking about. But as he got farther into it, then you could start to see that they were figuring out that there's something, this is not something that is legit. This is not even legit at all. He's just making this shit up. I think once they realized it was kind of too late. But yeah, I would like to have seen every Republican, as soon as he started reading that crap, stop him in his tracks and say, no, pound the gavel, whatever, just scream, hey, you can stop, you can't do that, and shut him down right there. That's what should have happened. But I think they were all just caught off guard, to be honest with you. Dennis Waddell, he's going to go with Creepy Joe, Quid Pro Quo Joe, as he writes. Quid Pro Quo Joe. Very nice. Fredo and the Pencil Neck Geek, Adam Schiff. Chris is going to go with Judge Knapp and... Chris Bacon. Chris Bacon is going to go with Judge Knapp. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Judge Napolitano. The rumor is that he was thinking that Trump would nominate him for a judgeship, maybe even Supreme Court. I don't know why he would think that. I mean, I don't think anyone would take Napolitano seriously as a Supreme Court judge. Maybe some other kind of judge. I don't know, but whatever his beef is, I'm just fed up with him, sick of him, and I just ignore him for the most part. I think most people do too. Peter Swales, he's going to go with the Pencil Neck Geek Schiff, along with Linda Martin. She's also going to go with Schiff, Madame Botox, and Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan. Ricky Ricardo, he's going to go with the parents of Greta. Absolutely, Ricky. And the people that clapped for her. Yeah, both. I mean, the people who are supporting this child abuse, as well as the parents who are responsible for this child abuse. Ed is going to go with the Pencil Neck Geek. Ed Lauder is going to go with Pencil Neck Geek. That would be Adam Schiff. Patty Willing. She is going to go with Madame Botox, the Pencil Neck Geek, Schiff, and the Penguin, Jerry Nadler. Jamie, he's going to go with Schiff and Madame Botox. Youngblood, he's going to go with Adam Shit, Pelosi, and Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan. Stage Door Johnny, going to go with the Pencil Neck Geek Schiff. Beautiful Brown. Beautiful Brown's going to go with Matt Drudge. That's a very good pick. And we've never talked about this. We just really don't have time. But, yeah, I'm very, very disappointed in Matt Drudge. I cannot tell you what happened. I don't know if there's a personal issue between him and Trump. But he has never really been on the Trump train that I can remember. But he's been viciously on the other side. And I don't know. I know he's real close friends with Ann Coulter. And she's all over the fence. I don't care much for her either. But very disappointed. I have to say very, very disappointed in Drudge. All those years of hearing Drudge and listening to Drudge and reading Drudge Report, I don't know what happened. I mean, where the disconnect happened, how he suddenly flipped. But I don't know what's going on with Matt Drudge. But Beautiful Brown, that's a very good thing to bring up. I think a lot of people are scratching their heads trying to figure that one out. I think it's got to be something personal. Douglas, he's going to go with Judge Napolitano. So there's the second vote for Judge Napolitano. Clearly a lot of people annoyed by him. I've been annoyed with him for a very long time. I never was a big fan. I kind of learned about him back when I was a Ron Paul supporter. He was a big supporter of Ron Paul, and that was all good. But I don't think he's much of a Trump fan, and he's definitely harmed the cause. We have John Wan. He's going to go with the bug-eyed pencil neck geek Schiff, the bug-eyed fool, along with Madam Botox and Joe Biden. Quid pro quo Joe. Lee is going to go with the pencil neck geek. J.C. Hasty is going to go with Pelosi, Schiff, and Quid pro quo Joe. Larry, that's right, Larry. He's going to go with the whistleblower. Hey, that's the first vote for the whistleblower. Yeah, the whistleblower. He definitely deserves to be Dumbass of the Week. I think we're going to learn this person's identity, and I think it's going to be a very, very ugly, messy deal when that happens. His second pick, Larry's second pick, is going to be Adam Schiff, and his third pick is Ed Henry. Yeah, Ed Henry's very annoying. I'm not a big fan of Ed Henry, and sometimes I think he's trying to play the devil's advocate, but most of the time he just looks like the devil's asshole. So, I don't know. Regina is going to go with Madam Botox. Jenny is going to go with Shifty Adam, and Madam Botox. Robin is going to go with the bug-eyed fool Schiff. Mona Lisa, again, with the bug-eyed fool. Media Speaks is going to go with the bug-eyed fool, Madam Botox. And the Democrats who are in them red districts that are being forced to support impeachment, they're going to pay a high price. But I think they already know that. We have Mara, the lovely and talented Mara. She's going to go with Tulsi. That's the second vote for Tulsi. And again, I'm very disappointed, but she did flip. She backtracked. She supports impeachment now. Off with her head. Her second pick, Mara's second pick, is going to be Madam Botox. And her third pick is a solid one, the bug-eyed fool, Shifty Adam. Carl, he's going to go with the fans of Adam Schiff. I didn't know he had any. They're all over in Ukraine. And of course, William is an idiot, is going to go with the bug-eyed fool, the pencil neck geek, Adam Schiff for brains. So there, as you can see, just going through the reading out of the votes, you can see it's dominated by Pelosi and Schiff. Biden got quite a few votes, a couple other honorable mentions, but when I look at the tally here, it's just like Schiff and Pelosi just blowing away the field. It's like not even close. Third place was way distant in the third place. So it looks like edging out. It looks like Schiff is going to win, the pencil neck geek, the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff for brains. Looks like he edged out Pelosi by 2 votes. He won by 2 votes. Looked like he had 5, 10, 15, 26, and she had 24. 26, 24. Adam the bug-eyed fool wins first place, Dumbass of the Week. Congratulations. Pelosi, a close second, failing by 2 votes, coming in second place. And third is Quid Pro Quo Joe. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good night. See you. Bye.